Hi, my name is Christine Brown Taylor. I'm a social worker, and prior to being the program manager for the Community Case Management Program, I was working in institutions, different institutions across California, doing the TCMP program, Transitional Case Management Program, which was assessing mental health. So I've probably interviewed over 1,000 inmates. Now I have to switch my language also to participant, which I like, seems much better. Anyway, and so I had the biggest thing that so many of these inmates talked to me about was resources. I don't have anything. I don't have family. I don't have money. I lost my ID. I don't even know how to get an ID. I don't have any money to be able to process that kind of paperwork while I'm in the institution. So a lot of them that was so much of their story when they would talk about it. And so this program was actually really exciting to me, because now we're finally going to be able to address those people that talked to me and spent the time and said, I really do want to make a change. Now, obviously, when you're in custody, you have a different mentality than necessarily when you get out on the street. But what our role is to continue with that mentality of I can do better than what I'm doing right now, which is being in prison. So when they developed this process, one of the biggest components was saying that there's going to be something to help the parole agents. There's no way that they can do everything that needs to be done. So what they decided, they came up with the concept of having the Community Case Management Program. So what this does, it incorporates all these elements that we talked about. We're looking at it maybe a little bit differently, because we're going to be more of a service provider, social worker kind of mentality versus an attorney or custody or anything like that. So we're going to look at a lot of things that affect who this person is, and we're going to incorporate these elements. These are some of the things that we're going to look at and say, they need help with this. So an example would be financial. Some of these people have never had a bank account, don't know how to open one. If they do get a job, they go right to those payday and get the 25% interest on their check that's coming. So that would be something that we would look at and say, okay, one of the things, if you don't know how to manage money, we're going to look at having you enroll when you get out in some type of financial class, so you have an understanding on how to manage money, how to open a bank account, or any of those things that go along with it. So we look a little bit more carefully and more in detail to some of these aspects. Another thing is looking at their spiritual side. Have they been a participant in a church, in a faith community? Is there something that we can use to build upon that? Is there a pastor that they used to really were connected with that can help them in this process when they come out? So we're looking at all these elements, and we're getting a lot of this information from the life plan, because some of that's going to be addressed. So part of our role is we're going to go pre-release. We're going to meet with the participant at least 6 months prior to release. We have to have time on the outside to do some of these things that we said we're going to do. We have to build a relationship with the participant to know that we're the person that they're going to be looking at besides the parole agent when they get out. And so we're going to determine their needs upon release and pre-enroll them into any kind of programs that they're going to go to. So if they have a drug issue, we're going to pre-enroll them into a drug treatment program. If they have housing issues, employment issues, we're going to try to do as much of that work prior to them getting out, so that way we can have a smoother process. We're going to develop what we call the 72-hour plan for release. Research has shown this is the most critical time for inmates when they get released, is that first 72 hours. It's going to determine what's going to happen with them, whether they're going to basically come back or not. So we're going to try to structure that as much as possible. We're going to be on call. We're going to give them a phone number. We're going to process it out to, like, you're going to get up, you're going to get out on such and such a day. What are you doing that evening? Who are you going to be calling? Who are you going to be talking to? What time are you going to go see your parole agent the next day? We're going to structure that as much as possible. They're used to structure because they're institutionalized, but we're going to have them help to create that, which makes a difference. It's one thing if you have, if you have a spouse that tells you you need to be cooking dinner at 5 o'clock versus, okay, what time are we going to have dinner? So it's going to be a team effort to have them have some participation in developing what this is going to be like. We're going to coordinate the release, the transportation, which we talked about, so that's smooth. We're going to assist the participant in obtaining any type of documentation so many times, a lot of them don't even have IDs when they're released, nothing. And so we're going to help with all of that. And then one of the key factors we're going to find out from them is who's positive in your life. Really think it through. Is there an old teacher, if you were in high school, that really paid a lot of attention to you, that you felt was a positive role model? Who are those people? And then we're going to try to talk to those people and say, hey, we have somebody that's going to be coming out of prison. They identified you as somebody that was really influential in their life. Is there any way that you could help with their transition back into the community? Because in addition of having the participant be integrated in the community, we want the community to be ready for the participant. It happens at the same time. So we're going to look at the faith community, their family, their friends. Most people, when they start coming out, they can identify, you know what, my family is bad news. As much as I love them, I'm going to get all caught up. I cannot go back to that house again. There's 5 people that are doing drugs in there. That's not a good place for me. And finding that out. And then we build from that. We're also going to be meeting with the prison case manager to review how they are doing while they're in custody. What is their life plan? What modifications has happened? How were they when they first were assessed? What did those assessments look like? What do they look like now? How are they programming? All of those kind of things. And then we're also going to be meeting with the parole agent before they get out. Again, building the relationship. Okay, this is the parole agent we're going to be working with. This is the participant. We're going to try to figure out what's going to be the best way to have them have a smooth transition and be successful. Then for post-release, as I said before, we're going to be on call. We'll have the social workers be on call, so that way if they get stuck, I don't really know what I should be doing, and then we can say, okay, this is something you could do. Try this, try this, try this. Because there's a lot of anxiety. They're going to feel the pressure of having to succeed because they've got all this attention from the very beginning. So part of that is going to be to ease some of that anxiety. And then we're going to be brokering all the services for the participant. And one of the beauties of this project is that we're using existing services. It's not like we're creating new things. We're reintroducing a process, connecting all the dots together and utilizing everything from community resources all the way through of existing services. So part of our job as community case manager is going to be identifying services in the community that are good, that have had success rates, that can document that they have been able to do X, Y, and Z, whether it's treatment, vocation, educational, whatever. And then feed all that back to all this team that we've been working with so far. So we have all these collaborative partners and anybody who plays a positive role, which I talked about. So we provide case management services prior to release. So you might see my face. I'll be walking on the yard, meeting with the participants, talking to the community, or the prison case management team, finding out what's going on, maybe even talking to some of you if they're in an education class that you're teaching and saying, what's your take on this? Is there something that you think is information that I could use to help this person have a successful integration? We're also going to, like I said, enroll them into resources, and then we're going to provide the community case management services up to 18 months after release. So we're in it for the long haul. This is not a cookie cutter approach. This is very individualized, and that's what's going to make the difference in this program. Because it's, as you know, like Chuck had said, everybody comes in, you put the stamp of approval, you process them through the system, and that's it. Everybody gets the same treatment. This is a little different, and that's why we did so many assessments in the beginning. And then work hand in hand with the parole agent. I mean, not to be simplistic or to be sexist, but it's like mom and dad. Okay, you've got somebody who's going to be the supportive, really reinforcing positive behavior, and then you've got, the hammer if you need it. But them working together as a team to say, we're in it with you, let's see what we can do, let's get you integrated back into society. And a lot of that is talking about behavior changes, thought process changes, and realizing they can be successful. And Scott had talked about having positive reinforcement. We've built a lot of that into this process. We're talking about having like a graduation ceremony and even inviting the judge that sentenced them to say, look, this is where I am 6 months after release. This is what I've been doing. And really trying to make a positive change. Because what's different about this too, it's a long process. As you can see, there's all these steps along the way, but there's a whole continuum as we go through it. which is, you know, just wonderful. Then we're going to have the community roundtable, all the participants invited. We might get feedback from people that can't come to the meeting, but we'd say, are they going to their drug treatment? How are they doing? We'll be meeting with the treatment providers. You know, are they showing up? Are they participating? What's your take on how they're doing? And then the parole agent would facilitate the meeting, but we kind of organize it and coordinate it and make sure everybody's there, or at least their voice is heard of what's going on. And you know, the final goal is successful reentry into the community. I mean, this is what we want to be able to do. What is really interesting, the research has shown that if you have we're talking about people that have offended, have gone to prison. Your prison the first time, you're not necessarily going to be changing your behavior too much. It's like, I got caught. You know, I'll do better next time not to get caught. And then you have people that have 5 or more prison sentences. They're pretty institutionalized. This is their way of behavior. But those people that are between that, first time in institution and all the way up to 5+, those are the group that we want to capture, because we know that they will be more motivated on their second prison term to change, because they're like, okay, now I'm getting a little, something's going on here, I got to change something. And generally they're older. You get somebody who's sentenced that's 18 to 21, their brain's still developing. Believe it or not, we think we're all grown up at 18, but we're not. But their thought process is going to be very different versus someone who's 25 and going in for the second time. They're the ones that are saying, okay, you know, what am I doing here? And one of my favorite lines when I was talking to inmates in my previous role was to say, do you want to retire here? Look around. You know, what's the average age in prison now? It's like, what, 46 or something? Or it's higher than what you would imagine. Say, you know, you're going to have to make some changes. But for them to know that they have support behind those changes and have direction on how that can happen and be a collaborative process, I mean, that's the gem of what's going on here. So that's kind of the role of the community case management piece of it. But what I want to also say is that there was besides all the work, and you see us up here talking and, you know, tooting the horn of what we've done, believe me, there's been some challenges in this process. We're doing something brand new. We meet every week, and we sit there and try to hash out the simplest little things, like even language, you know, participant, inmate, whatever, you know, someone's like, I'm talking about, well, should the community case manager be involved in looking at the C file so they can look at the EPRD, you know, and then I got, you know, half the room's like, what's an EPRD, you know? So even just, it's a learning process for all of us because we're all from different scopes of work. So it's really pretty exciting and innovative. And believe me, what's fun about being on the tail end of it, it's going to be challenging, but I could go up and call Lisa and say, you know that guy that you sentenced on da-da-da-da, guess what he's doing now? And look at the beauty of that, because everybody has a piece and they have a history with this program and the participant.
Little question and answer, but first off, we beat up the Department of Corrections throughout this on their recidivism rate, blah, 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 blah. Let me tell you, when me and another old timer in our class here, Ben Oliveros, started, I was at Dual Vocational Institution, DVI, in Tracy, and Ben was in Soledad. And we had a level of violence in those days that was unparalleled. DVI, does anybody know what the nickname of DVI was? Gladiator School. We had 12 homicides in 13 months that I worked there, the first 13 months I worked there. Point being, we don't have that level of violence anymore, and that was with a very small population. You handle 175,000 of the hardest core felons in the United States of America, and you don't lose a facility. While we had 2 deaths at Youth Training Center and CIM here just a couple years ago, those were the first in 20 years. We don't lose facilities, we don't lose prisons, we maintain the peace. We are excellent at managing behavior. Where our failure has been is at changing behavior. And that is what we are really focusing on with this project. We are trying to change behavior. Is anybody threatened that this is going to turn the whole world around and you're going to lose your jobs because everybody is rehabilitated? Okay, no. But the point is, we would better serve our community, I think, by collaborating, bringing us out of the silos.